everyone, it's Tara Jones, where you have joined my YouTube channel where I talk about all things small business. Today we're going to talk about the 5 basic steps that you need to take to set up an LLC. You have your idea, you're all excited to get ready to go and start your business. A lot of people skip these important steps because they just want to jump into selling their product or their service. And I strongly recommend that you don't skip these steps. They're relatively straightforward, but they're incredibly important. So the first step in setting up your LLC, number 1, you have to choose a name. And I know this seems incredibly straightforward and simple. And of course you have to choose a name, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. So when you think about the name of a company, you want to make sure that you do your due diligence and check domain names, social media sites, the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office. Make sure your name is available and that you're not going to infringe on anyone else's trademark or name, so that you don't run into those kind of problems. So choosing a name is incredibly important. Choosing the right name is important. I highly recommend this book called How I Built This by Guy Raz. I'll put a link below. This is an incredibly entertaining book about a lot of companies that you're aware of, like Airbnb, Spanx, Fubu, a lot of big companies that of course started very small, and there's some really entertaining stories in here about how these companies picked their name. So I highly recommend that book. It's Adam Grant, if you know Adam Grant, New York Times bestselling author, called it the mother of all entrepreneurship memoirs. So anyway, highly recommend this book. It talks about some interesting things about how some pretty famous companies chose their names, and it's educational. So number 1, choose your name, choose it wisely. Number 2, register with your state's Secretary of State office. Sometimes it's called the Office of Commerce, depending on your state, but if you Google your state Secretary of State, you should be able to find it. You are going to want to file articles of organization, or whatever your LLC membership documents are called. I'm based out of Ohio, and it's called articles of organization. You do not want to file articles of incorporation. That is used if you are going to set up a corporation. We're talking today about LLCs, limited liability companies. So you're going to need to register your company with your state's Secretary of State office, which part of that involves choosing what's called a statutory agent. A statutory agent is an individual or a company that accepts official mail. It can be you, it can be the owner of the company. There are plenty of companies that you can hire to serve as a statutory agent. But most states require your statutory agent to have a physical office in the state in which you are registering. So once you choose your statutory agent, that is a piece of information that's going to be included on your articles of organization, which is the formal document that you file with your Secretary of State. So this is incredibly important. You want to make sure that if you have any questions about your state's forms, that you reach out to, I recommend you reach out to an attorney in your state if you have any questions. Most of the forms are pretty easy to complete and pretty straightforward. But if you have any questions, I recommend talking to an attorney. For example, in Ohio, I think our articles of organization are maybe 2.5 pages of just information about the members of your company, the statutory agent, a little bit about the type of business that you're setting up. I would be as broad as you possibly can, because that your mission statement or your company might grow. So be somewhat broad, and most states are fine with that, and any sort of description about what your business does. That's number 2. Number 3, you need to set up your internal documents. The most important one is called an operating agreement. An operating agreement, I like to call it kind of the constitution of your business. It's going to set forth who the members are, what ownership interest those members have. And if it's just you, if you're a single member LLC, you're going to list yourself as 100% owner. It also sets forth any capital contributions that you made to the company. Did you loan the company money to get it started? How are you going to be paid back? What happens if you dissolve the company? What happens if a member dies? How does that work? How do you want your company to operate under those circumstances? So it's a really, really important document, and you might be asking yourself, okay, well, if it's just me, Tara, why do I need an operating agreement if I'm the sole member? It just is. It's really important that you have an operating agreement, actually, for a couple reasons. Number one, if you need funding, a bank is going to want to see an operating agreement, even if you are the sole member. Number two, it's incredibly important if you, as your company starts to grow, and you might want to bring on a new partner, a new member, employees, you have control over what the operating agreement says. And so any partner that you bring in will need to agree to the terms of your operating agreement. The great thing about an operating agreement too is it can be amended. So if it no longer works for your business, if your needs change, your company grows, it can amend an operating agreement to make it work for you. But it's still very, very important to have. And again, it can change as your needs change for the company. And finally, if you were ever audited by the IRS, and I hope that never happens, the IRS is going to want to see your operating agreement. So you need it for funding, you need it as you grow, and you would need it if you are ever audited by the IRS. So don't skip this step. It's incredibly important, and just know that it can change if you need it to. So operating agreement, very important. I'm going to... I have a course that I offer, and there's a link below where you can get, as part of the course, you get a free operating agreement template, and I go much, much more in depth in all of these steps. But anyway, if you're interested, there's a link below. Okay, step number 4, you need a tax ID number. These numbers are called EINs, employer identification numbers. Sometimes they're called TINs, tax identification number, and sometimes they're called FEINs, federal employer identification number. Those are all interchangeable terms for the same number. This is a number that you get from the IRS, and it essentially becomes like the Social Security number of your company. I do not recommend using your Social Security number, your personal Social Security number, for anything. That defeats the whole purpose of setting up an LLC, which provides you with that liability protection, which is very attractive to people setting up LLCs. It's because LLCs are pretty simple to do. You want to get a tax ID number. You do this on the IRS website. If you just go to irs.gov, in the search bar on the top right-hand side of the website, you type in EIN, and it'll take you right to an online application to get your new tax ID number. The application process is pretty straightforward. You're just going to answer some basic information about your company, where it's located, the address, generally the type of business that you are, whether that's retail, services, selling products. There's like a list that they give you, and you can just click on the best category that your business falls into. And then once you get to the end of the application, the website's going to ask you if you'd like to receive your EIN in a letter by mail or online. Choose the online option because you will get your EIN to pop up immediately. The IRS is going to give you a 2-page letter. Your new EIN is in the top right-hand corner of that letter. Save it. Save it multiple places, print it, keep it in your office. To get that EIN letter from the IRS, if you lose it, is incredibly difficult because you have to get somebody on the phone at the IRS. Try to avoid that. It could take weeks. So print it, save it somewhere else, and save it a third place if once you get that EIN letter. And that leads me to the fifth step, which is to go ahead and set up a bank account for your business. Even if you just fund it with $50, go ahead and get it set up. You're going to need your operating agreement, and you're going to need your tax ID number when you go to a bank and set up your business account. There's no magic necessarily in picking a bank. If you can set it up at a bank that you already have accounts at, but you need to keep your business money separate from your personal money. This is very important. Other than that initial capital contribution, which could be $50, it could be $10,000. Whatever you've put in your operating agreement as the money that you are using to start your business, you can put that in your bank account. But make sure you have a record of what money that you loan to your company. And it's incredibly important to keep your personal money separate from your LLC money. So that is, keeping your money separate is one of the key elements in keeping that liability protection in place for your personal assets. So just to recap, the 5 basic steps in getting your LLC up and running are: spend some time, choose a good name, register with your Secretary of State, put together an operating agreement, even if it's bare bones, put it together and have it in place and amend it as you need it. 4th, get your EIN from the IRS website. And number 5, go ahead and set up your bank account, keeping your money separate, keeping your company money separate from your individual money. So once you have those things in place, you are set up as a legal LLC in your state. I hope this was helpful. Please comment below if you have obviously any comments or anything else that you'd like me to share about this. Again, the course that I offer, it's only $111, has templates, and I go into a lot more detail about setting up your LLCs and other companies too. If I talk about corporations, S corps, C corps, things like that. So if you're interested, check that out, and hopefully that's helpful. So thanks for joining me. Subscribe, check back in. I'm hoping to release regular videos on all things small business. Bye-bye.